Let me just see if we're still on. Let me know. Yep. Okay. Kian Cole, I see you there. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened. We are living in a world where the technology problems can happen. So, yeah, my apologies for that. But we should be back. And just let me know in the chat if you're still there. We're chatting with, yeah, Patlock, and we lost connection. But we're back now. Let's just make sure audio is running.
We're back.
Sorry about that, everybody. So we were talking about Party Pupils and how the collaboration came together. You guys were bonding over chords.
Yeah. So we actually did like I think maybe even before Michigan, we followed each other on Twitter, or I was following him on Twitter, and he was talking about like the Aha Take on Me record for some reason, and he said something like, "Oh, should I remix this?" And he just tweeted that out, and I was like, "Oh, I totally know what that should sound like, or what that could sound like." And I responded, I was like, "Oh, I have an idea." And then I think I just dropped him in a DM some chords that I just quickly put down on keys, and he was like, "Oh, this is dope." And then we did a bootleg together, and I don't even know if it ever came out officially. It's in some mixtapes and stuff, but it was the first thing we ever did. And I think later on, then we linked up at Michigan at Electric Forest, and then after that, we did this record on Kitsune called "From the Back," featuring dances with white girls, which is kind of a hip house, kind of a modern hip house type of record, which is probably the first time anyone's said that on your stream. And yeah, I've just been sort of like buddies ever since. We did a tour together a couple of years ago across the states, and actually have been writing a lot in quarantine, and that's not together, but remotely. And it's definitely been one of the highlights of this whole stretch, just writing a bunch of different things and sending things back and forth.
Awesome.
It's been great.
Yeah. So yeah, what are your thoughts on collaboration? Do you have any pros and cons, or what are you for? Are you really all about it? What are the best things about collaborating with people?
I mean, I think it depends on the personality, obviously, but I'm super pro, and I think that I had a specific idea in mind before, maybe before this time. So I would rephrase that as, you can go into a collab, and I think a lot of artists are like, I want it to sound like this, and that's cool. But it may be more difficult if you don't always see eye to eye with the other person, or you have totally different tastes or different visions for the record. And that's totally fine if you're good at communicating, which, I don't know, maybe not a common trait amongst all producers. But so in the past, I've done a lot of my favorite collabs in person. So 90% of my records with vocalists, I'm in the room writing the beat maybe from scratch, or the beat is maybe a rough, and then actively contributing to the vocal line, which has helped me start to learn about songwriting, whether that's just lyrically, or at the beginning it was just melodies. And I really enjoy that, and I actually miss that a lot. But that was basically how a lot of my records came about. And then with producers, I wasn't really finding the groove as much, because it's like, do you use, whose computer do you use? Like what plugins, or like, what DAW, and like, what are you trying to do? And like, someone's like, let me switch out, and like, you get on someone else's computer and like the shortcuts are, they're all backwards, or like the mouse is up and down. And you're like, so I always ran into that in the past. And I guess over this period of time when, no one could be together, I started playing with some different methods of collaboration, whether they were like over Zoom, like doing Zoom sessions with people, and like screen sharing over Ableton. And with Ryan, we didn't do a lot. I think we did that like one day, but he's more of a fire things back and forth. So he'd fire me something and I'd be like, cool, well, like send me the, like, what if we just move this bit over here and let me like play a bass line, or let me add a bunch of stuff on top and send it back to him. He's like, oh, I like that. Let's use this part. And so we send like, you could do it on Splice or whatever, just with Dropbox, and just send the session back and forth. Or sometimes I will just send like specific parts, be like, this is for the bridge, and like do a whole thing. So I think the key is, one, like a really good rapport, or, communication level with your partners. Some similar tastes would help, but if not, I think talking that out and being like, well, what kind of record do we want to make? Like, not just like, what is this going to be? Because you might be going in circles then, right? If you're sending a session back and forth and someone's like adding things, drum parts, effects to make it like super peak time, and the other person's thinking like, I want this to be like a drumless beach chill vibe, right?
Yeah.
So communication's super important. And then finding someone that you can be like really honest with and be like, I think this is fire, and I think like, no, that's not working, or this is like not as strong, and just taking it without being like offended. Like, just the best work, the best idea hopefully always wins.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Quick shout out to Nina Mendoza. We've talked about bridges twice, and Nina Mendoza is possibly the biggest fan of the bridge section of a song. Also, shout out Adam W. We got
Adam. What's
some
good?
Fam in the house. So staying on the subject of collaboration, what is your, like, if you could collaborate with anybody, what's your dream collaboration?
Ooh, it's tough. Okay, so just off the top, I know I would like die to write with Janet, like the Janet. That would be very challenging because I'd be like sweating a lot, but that would be a great one. On the producer side, there's so many different ways to go. I'm gonna throw out two. One would be Cirismo, because he's a genius.
Oh wow,
mysterious genius. And another one would be on the more musical side, like traditional musical side, would be, I always don't know how to say his name, but like Gabriel, or whatever Gar says, like Montano, like does this, did the amazing Dilla cover EP. I just love his arrangements and his ideas. He's like out there, super like artist. I think we could make some good stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, he's in LA, right?
Yeah. I think I tried to like reach out to his team once. We'll see.
I think you put me onto Serious Mo. What's the big song? What's your favorite Serious Mo song?
Serious Mo track? Who's the guy that worked on that? Oh, legendary dude. Jemba, I think, was like working on that and like turned a Cirismo song into like a Justin Bieber song, which is crazy. Oh, you're muted again.
Oh, it's my bad. Yeah, sorry, I'm not on top of it. My bad. Okay, I can't seem to. What was the song that you wanted for Serious Mo?
The Serious Mo one? Yeah. I mean, there's pretty much any of them are epic, but Plasterer of Love is a favorite.
Let's see what we got this here.
Or fair. I mean, you could honestly just play anything.
Serious Mo. Plaster. Let's see if we got it. Oh, I think I'm spelling it wrong.
It's like SIRI. It's like Serious Radio.
We got it. Yeah, Sirius XM.
Sirius XM Mo.
Here we go. This might be the first time I'm hearing this one.
Oh man. Run it.
This is great, Pat.
Great. Your first time? Exciting. And there's a really great bridge that Nino will
Did you say bridge?
appreciate.
Uh-oh.
There's a bridge. And like the breakdown, like, yeah. There you go. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Add this to your playlist. It's going straight in my ideas playlist.
All right. Simple. Good harms on the.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Very French. Totally,
French. I think he's German though, which would explain a lot. He clearly loves the French sound.
Okay, cool. We're back. So that was Serious Mo with The Plasterer of Love. That's the original version. So that's your dream collaboration. I hear you about Janet though, man. That would be a
both of them. We get them both in the room. Can you imagine? Oh, crazy. Big day.
So speaking, about production stuff, we're on the nerdy tech talk right now about production stuff. You dropped a Splice sample pack pretty recently, right? Or have you done one or two?
Yeah, I dropped my second one. I guess that's coming up on a year or something. Yeah, Heartbeats, volume 1 and 2, and super fun. Definitely like a bigger project than I imagined to do. Like I think the first one and maybe also the second one, I like trashed the first versions. Just like was like, nah, this is not working, and just like because you work on it, I worked on it for probably months and months. And because you're trying to figure out, like, what am I trying to say with this group of sounds? It's such an interesting approach to like deconstructing like what you bring to the musical landscape. What loop am I about? It's just super weird, but very introspective as an artist. And like at the end, building the demos, like writing the demos. Some people like write a song first, a whole song, a couple songs, and then like bounce out all the different parts. And that's totally not what I did. I just like wrote a bunch of stuff. Like here's 15 chord progressions, and here's 10 bass lines, and here's a bunch of loops that I wrote. And then after that, I like took those different parts and like made tracks out of them for the demos, sort of like mini mixes. And that's really interesting because you're like, this is super weird, like just dragging in a bunch of loops that I wrote that are maybe in different keys and putting them together, and makes you think about the process in a different way. So sorry, what was your original question?
No, that's actually really the perfect answer, because I was just like the process of that, and I mean, I think when you first get into production, finding samples is a real challenge, right? And where you get them. And it feels like Splice have done a really great job at like creating this place where you can do that. There's other people too, of course, Loop Masters, even Serato Studio. We have sample packs that you can download as well for free if you're a Serato Studio user. Plug. But more importantly, I guess just around that kind of concept, how do you feel about people using your samples in that way, where they're just taking like a little bit of yours and then expanding upon it?
I think it's awesome. I think what they say is like the greats steal from everyone, and this is not stealing at all. I mean, that's literally their tools to play with and to make your own. And I would suggest the way I like to go about pulling from different things is like not to just use like one kit. Or I think you can make, if you wanted to make a house track, you might be well served to explore any non like house type of realm within Splice, if we're talking about Splice. So it'd be like, oh, like wood sounds or like nature you know, Foley recordings and taking bits from that you like and then building like kits or loops out of that in a house format. And I think that's when more interesting work and when your taste can really shine. Because if you just took like, you know, all the best house producers and used all, you know, all of their things, you might just sound like everyone else, or you know, or those guys. And so yeah, that's just like one approach that I like. I like to sample everything, like, and everyone, and sometimes I won't sample like, you know, kind of anything at all. And then other tracks I'll just have like dozens and dozens of like little micro samples, or turn a sound into a pad, like into a virtual instrument, and, you know, turn into a lead sound or a bass line. And when you get into like the micro sampling is also another entire world. And you guys have your own tool with Sample that encourages, right, you know, people to create their own palettes. And, you know, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting to hear. Just I think finding your sound through samples is an interesting way to figure out your identity as a producer. That's really cool. And it's also cool, again, going back to what you were talking a little bit about, as far as creating income for, you know, producers. It's actually like, I mean, for the longest time, we were just grabbing each other's sounds or sharing them, and there was no real like way of compensating people for that. And it's kind of neat that there's a marketplace with Splice and Loop Masters and other places where people are getting paid for those sounds, and then therefore making it more accessible for, you know, younger producers or beginning producers to have access to those sounds too. It's democratic.
Absolutely. I think Frieza sent me something that he did, like a collab, and I was like, oh, this sounds dope. And he said that the guy, his partner, had like thrown it together using the Serato Studio.
Yeah,
that's record. Yeah,
it's our DAW. Yeah, if you're in the chat and you're interested in production, because we're definitely talking about production stuff right now, give it a try.
We are.
You can download it for free. So what actually is one of your favorite records like right now that you would recommend someone listen to?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Let me see.
Because we're going to pull it up. It can be one of yours if you want.
Could it be one of mine? Hang on. I gotta think on that. So I was checking out. I wish there was a liked thing in I know that there is somewhere. Oh, there is liked in Spotify. What a ridiculous thing to say. I wish there was a liked function in Spotify. Okay, so I'm just pulling up. I just found out about this producer named DCA, or like Deaton Chris Anthony. He's not small. Like, I think he kind of went viral on TikTok or something, and like he makes some really cool stuff. So I'm gonna dive into his back catalog, sort of like in the indie pop lo-fi stuff. But then like the thing that I first clicked on was like kind of like a rave banger, but with like lo-fi sounds. So that was really cool.
What's the song called?
The first one I say was called 1999 She, like 2 words.
And that's 1999
space She.
Okay, and this is by Deaton. Oh, okay, here we go. Cool.
You have it up. Nice.
All right, let's listen to this. This better be good, Pat.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh yeah, this is great. Already. The 808s?
Ouch. Yeah. But in like bedroom pop format.
Oh yeah.
This stuff was like all over the, like, this is not what this stuff all sounds like by any means.
Sounds like there's some scratching in there even. This is great, Pat. What a interesting mix of different like influences.
Girl, you crazy.
Pretty fresh.
Oh man,
I recommend his other stuff because it's like yeah, he's a talented guy. So I'm glad that you asked me that question and I was able to find that because it's hard.
Yeah, but
Finance, yeah.
that's so cool though, and it really definitely sounds like very young in the best way possible. Where it's like there's a certain innocence in the like liberal borrowing of sounds that this, I guess, the generation now kind of has. I think one of the artists I've been listening to a lot is this guy called Vegan, Vegyn, and he kind of does similar things like that, where there's like little, just very interesting multimedia samples that I haven't really heard stuff like that since the like late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah, and DJ Papalock.
One more I got to plug because it was one of the best. I think one of the best records I've heard this year, and it was so good I had to put it on. I think it was like a submission when I did this mixtape, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about, for 88 Rising, that's coming out this Friday. But I was like putting out this call for Asian artists, and someone on Twitter sent me this record by Chong the Nomad, and that's not anything like that one. I don't remember the name of the actual song, but she goes by Chong the Nomad, and this is one of the best records, it's that I've heard in a while.
Okay, we got some songs here from Chong the Nomad. Do you know if it's any of these ones on screen? We got Take Two, Millstream, On Fire, BB, Two Colors, Go Away.
I think it's On Fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's give this one a try. This is a great thing about streaming. Just finding stuff this way is interesting.
Right?
You got me on fire. Come on, baby. Come on, baby, baby, put me up.
Like, you already know. Like, you don't even need to hear the whole thing. You already know.
Yeah, the way they're using these sounds is fantastic. All right, that's all you get as a taste. This is fantastic, though. Great recommendations, Pat. Like,
Got you.
Now, yeah, I think while we're here, this is definitely something I wanted to talk about. So you just touched on a mixtape you got coming out with. Is it 88 Rising?
Yeah, it's gonna air. It's an hour-long mix. It's gonna air on their radio station, House of Jade, on Sirius XM this Friday. I don't remember what time it is. It's on. I'm sure I'll post it on Twitter. But I guess as part of AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and I wanted to do a mix featuring just Asian artists and Asian producers, and realized that my own knowledge, I know a few, but I figured that there'd be a lot more out there that I needed to hear. And so at one point I was like, just put it out on Twitter and, send me your heat, send me whatever you got. And got a lot of great submissions, and from people that I hadn't heard of before. And I'm really excited about it. It's sort of a bit like, it's not just like a house mix or anything. It starts pretty slow and ends pretty quick. And for example, like that Chong the Nomad record is in there. And it's really cool to be able to find about these artists. And I think that the world needs to hear them.
Absolutely. So you said it's going to be on Sirius XM. Is it going to be able to be listened to? Are you going to post it on your Instagram or?
Yeah. I'll post about it, and then I'll upload the whole mix after, like, probably this weekend. It'll be on my Audius. Maybe I'll put it on SoundCloud too, but definitely I'll put it on like Audius first. And definitely everyone's worth checking out. Some of them, like some of the artists I'd worked with before. It's really cool that not surprising is not the right word, but some of my favorite cuts on there are from female artists like Chong and this other producer named Jaya. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, Jeia, sent in a really good remix that she did of Madame Gandhi, and it's cool to see that. Yeah, the talent's out there. You know, you just gotta like look or ask.
Absolutely. I think that's also kind of one of the great things about streaming is that there's a lot of sharing involved. So like, you can make a playlist and then share that with people. But if you are looking to figure out where to follow Pat Locke, if you pull up the command in the chat, !follow, it'll pull up Pat's social media. But where can people find you? It's Pat Locke Music on most platforms?
Yeah, it's just PATLOK Music. Everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Email.
So,
Hotmail. I don't have Hotmail.
So,
Good.
hey, I'm curious to know though, how did that, like, did 88 Rising approach you, or like, what's the relationship with them? Because they seem to be doing incredible stuff. I love what they do.
Yeah, they've been crushing it for some time. I don't know them like closely or anything. I think I did sort of like a YouTube playlist for them a couple years back on their channel that was not so like thematic. I think it was just, I picked a bunch of records. But yeah, I mean, they've got so many great art. They've built up such a great following and built up, supported a lot of great artists, and it's cool to see what they're doing. So it's definitely an honor to be asked to select some songs to play for them. But yeah, I think they're originally like founded here in LA. Oh, what's up, Jupiter? Thank you. The comments to start showing now, because that's the first comment I can see.
Oh yeah, they've been going the whole time, but yeah,
That's the first one.
I'll be posting them up here as we go.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, 88 Rising. That actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you. Acknowledging that it's Asian Pacific American History Month in the USA and Canada, where Pat Locke and I are from. Where are we at with representation and popular culture? Like, and like, where would you like to see it go?
I mean, I think it's getting better, and it has a ways to go, and it's been a difficult time for Asians over, being ostracized and demonized by certain political leaders, and like letting certain kinds of behavior be okay for a very select minority. But it's been a challenging time, and hopefully, most people don't hold those beliefs. But with representation, I think, there's clearly so much talent out there. I saw Tiny Desk recently. That was probably my favorite Tiny Desk or favorite like YouTube show I'd seen. It was Rina Sawayama's Tiny Desk from like London, and it's recommended like highly. One of like, I was like, oh, next Beyonce, like here we are, like right now. And I mean, shoot, like we're just gonna keep banging down that door. Like, I mean, it used to be you couldn't really find an Asian DJ or like artist, musician or something to go and support. Like it was pretty difficult, I think, when I was younger. And I can only really name like maybe Steve Aoki or like Laid Back Luke, who I think is like half, but still Asian. And when I first started DJing, now there's a lot. There's so many, regardless of what kind of music you're into. And so representation is super important, of all genders and colors and shapes and sizes. And I think it's on like festivals and promoters to do a better job of that. Like not just like a token, whatever here, without digging myself too deep of a hole here. Like, sometimes you'll get one or two people like anointed. It's like, oh, that ticks that. You'll tick that box and you'll tick that box. And that's, I saw a lineup recently. I can't really talk about because I've got some friends playing on it, but I was like, oh, everyone on this lineup is cut from exactly the same cloth, like not sound wise, but it's like, oh, that's kind of funny. Is that like an inside joke or something? And just, I think it comes down to awareness and making it a bit of an effort, because you don't have to make that much of an effort. But for someone in the audience, I remember, my first time playing at Audio in San Francisco. I think I was in the washroom and someone said, it was like, oh, like, you're whatever. You're like, doing it for like the Asians or something, and like, or like it's just like you and like Aoki or something. Or they said something that was like very complimentary and flattering, and I hadn't really thought about it too much to that point because I was just like, I just want to play shows. I don't look at my career in the lens of like all this stuff. It's just like, I just want to write good music or great music, put out records and play shows. That's what I know. But it's kind of crazy that to someone else, maybe it might inspire them to like, I don't know, do something or think that they could, to let them know that they can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I even think sometimes just talking about it can be kind of awkward, but it's even just those conversations and stumbling through them are part of the process, right? Of, like you said, creating awareness and having those discussions. And even that's one of the intentions of even having this interview and asking a question like that, so people can hear and have a perspective on that and know that it's important to talk about it. So we can't run away from it, we got to
for sure
face it. But yeah, on that subject, I wanted to ask you, this is something we ask every guest on the show. But what does the power of music, mean to you?
I think it transcends. I think it sort of like can transcend time for us, sort of like a moment or like a sense. You've probably seen those videos of people of like seniors, like really old seniors in homes who are borderline catatonic, and then someone's like played them a record from the 40s or the 20s or something, and all of a sudden they're like tapping their hands and like they're speaking, or like maybe tears come to their eyes, and it has this power that you can't really take away. I think when we work in music, you and I, every day, sometimes our senses can become dulled a bit, which is why it's very important to go and like live life. I've learned over the past year that I'm better off starting my routine by like going outside and like getting some exercise and like listening to some music like randomly, more or less, on my phone, and just letting things percolate, and not just like going from like the bed to the computer and like trying to like create some art. Sometimes it's that it works like that, but often it's not, and sometimes it's good to like let things percolate. And I think that it's really hard to define everyone's approach to it, whether they make it or just appreciate it, is so different. But the thing is that when you meet someone for the first time, either at a show or you ask them the favorite artist or something, and when you hear that, like maybe you have you share a favorite song or artist, like you automatically have that shared your simpatico, even if you come from very different places, and it just has that ability to cut down barriers that often of human construction. So yeah, it's this undefinable thing that is it's a gift, and I hope that we all get to like cherish it and appreciate it. Even the people that work. There was a point last year, or there's been points when I'm like, I don't want to listen to music anymore. Just you get kind of I think being an artist can be a bit in these times has been challenging when I often write music with a context, a scenario in mind, like this is a club track or something like that, right? Or this is X. And when you don't have a place to put it, sometimes the well runs a bit dry. So I definitely appreciate now that, like, even just these records I was able to share with you guys today. These are records, old and new, that are special. I feel like they're special enough they're worth sharing. And whether that's something that you take away or anyone just be like, yeah, share music, share the artist's music, because that's kind of the biggest gift and the biggest support that you can show.
Totally. It's pretty magic. Hey, like, I think you made a good point there about it's like another sense. It's such a good vehicle for communication and emotion and memory. Like it does this thing, right? Like it's hard to articulate sometimes, but yeah, it's there's nothing else that I can really say is like it. But it's on a spiritual level, right?
It is totally, absolutely spiritual.
Yeah, and on the subject of diversity, as I think a lot of one of the things that it's really done very well is kind of communicate perspectives, communicate ideas, and plant seeds that then grow and blossom to help people understand, you know, maybe perspectives that they didn't grow up with or know. And I think a lot about that, how it's been such a helpful vehicle in that way, for many people, just to appreciate other culture, and that's why I guess going back to that representation is that it's such an important thing to have those different people, different backgrounds in the music space. So those kind of those seeds can be planted, right, and grow, and yeah, it's great, and it's so cool, man. Like, it's great to see your trajectory is just growing from knowing you for so long. It's like your career is really gone, and I'm excited to see this summer and this song and hear So Fine at clubs, at festivals, and I think about it now. It's like a great. It's getting momentum now too, you know. Thank
you. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see some of the support. You know, we've been really lucky in having, like, this is the first time I think Diplo's played like a record of mine. He's played on his radio show, and like to see some of this, and it's cool because I mean, like, you write it and you sort of walk away from it. Like, sometimes you ever write a record, you've worked on it for a long time, and you sort of like, I don't know, now it's out in the world, hope people like it. But like, after you do that enough times, you don't like worry as much about, you're like, oh, this is like going to be the biggest whatever. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about the next record as well. Like, I'm finishing up a record with a Korean, basically like a K-pop record. It's kind of like 80s R&B, and like I'm really excited about that because I've never worked you know, on an original record in another language. And yeah, I think finding when you have that, that's a really nice spot to be in, to be excited about the music that you're making, about the art that you're making, and always looking forward to doing your best work, then, you know, in the future.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because yeah, when you put music out, you kind of want to manage those expectations. You don't want to get your hopes up that this might be the one that takes you to that next level. I mean, you hope it would, but it's hard, right? You don't want to get disappointed, kind of to what we were talking about earlier.
That's part of that's part of the journey, right? Understanding that some of these things, or a lot of these things, are out of your control, and just going like, how do I make a record that I make the best record I can make right now, that I will, you know, hopefully like in the future. Like, if you can look back 5 years ago, you know, that's 5 years of knowledge and experience you didn't have in production or anything. And you go, okay, well, but I understand what I was trying to do there. And I'm like, okay, cool. I still, like, I get it. Like, sure, it could be cleaner or whatever, but like, I got it. Like, that's pretty good. Like, I was hitting my mark, my potential, like, at the time, and be proud of like the journey. And sometimes you don't hit that and you're like, oh, I should have definitely like left that one in the demos folder.
For sure. So speaking of like that, in a way, like that knowledge that you've gained from the you know, putting out music, if you could go back in time and give like young Patlock some quick advice, what would it be?
I think I would try and suggest to myself to take a step back sometimes and look at like the bigger vision. I think that some of the artists that stand the test of time, and we look up to, we revere their work, is because there's a bigger lens. It's not like they were able to write a killer 3 or 5 or 8 minute track or song. That's how you get one-hit wonders, which is fine. I mean, it's tough, but the ones like the Princes and your Janets and, you know, your Justices, whatever, definitely, whatever, you go down the list. If you take a step back, you're like, oh, like, did this make sense? Like, these records, what were they doing? Not did I like this sound at the time? Like, sometimes they're panned and critics don't get it. But you're like, okay, did they have a story? Were they telling their story, like, within the framework of this narrative with this kind of sound, this technology, or, you know, what's happening here? And I think that would be, that's something that really differentiates artists when you have especially these days, a lot of the skill boundaries are getting really like kind of broken down. Like, you know, anyone can learn how to make like a good sidechain saw base like really quickly. You know, if you had YouTube and Splice and a copy of Ableton, or, you know, with Serato sample, like I could leave you there for 4 weeks and come back, and you'd probably be able to make like any kind of sound and learn, you know, make a really professional sounding track. The bigger question is like, well, okay, well, why should I care about that track as a listener, as a DJ, you know, curator, whatever? Why would I want to go see you at a festival? And I have this conversation sometimes, you know, on streams. People are like, you know, what is that next step? And really, it's about vision and story, and like, you know, you can only draw on your own experiences or things that influenced you. So like on my last EP called Gone Is Yesterday, I wanted to look back at some of the stories that I grew up with, these like Chinese legends. Some might know it as like the legend of the Monkey King, which is actually the original inspiration for Dragon Ball Z. And I grew up like watching these sort of action soap operas with my grandparents, and with books, and there was like a screen version. And so I wanted to like combine my tastes, and I really also love 16-bit like video game RPGs. And so I wanted to tell this story, putting myself, my own avatar, which was a carryover from the previous EP where I did an animated short film, and put myself in this context of an RPG, like fighting these monsters and meeting these characters and traveling together as like, you know, a bunch of warriors and pilgrims. So anyways, I got to do that. I wrote the whole script and storyboarded and everything. And then I finished the EP based around like the final scenes and stuff. And to me, like, I was pretty happy. Like, you know, I had some friends of mine, Cake Visuals, that I've worked with for years, help bring it to life. And I'm like, okay, well, now this is a body of work. Now it's not just 4 or 5 tracks. There's a story here. You can watch the story. We crammed, like, it's really difficult to cram like 100 hours of like gameplay, like RPG gameplay, into like 5 minutes. That was a long month just working on that aspect and storyboarding it. But that's just like a really crude example, because I'm not a filmmaker at all. But like, it was a really great experience that made me understand, learn a lot about different modes of storytelling. And I think that's what that's the advice I would, you know, give myself. It's like, go, even though you're writing music, like, what's the story here? Like, what world are we in?
That's a really good point. Actually, I have that short film that you're talking about. We're gonna watch it at the end of this interview, because we're just about at time. Actually, it's we've got another 15 minutes left. So yeah, thank you everyone who's tuned in to right now to this interview with Pat Locke. My name is Matt.
Thanks everyone.
And just a couple more questions, and if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them in a moment. So yeah, I guess really quick. Are there any things that you'd like to share with upcoming DJs or producers? Maybe a suggestion where you'd like to see things go?
You know, that's an interesting question. I think I would say, like, yeah, keep pushing. Like, you don't have to invent or reinvent the wheel, but you know what? I think with streams again and tutorials and things like that, which are great, the connection, the community that builds is awesome. I love that. Sometimes the focus is on like, how do I do like X, and not like, I've always been process, or not, maybe not always, but I am curious about process. I'm like, okay, so what was like the beginning of, you know, when you started to write this record? What were you thinking about? How were you feeling? And like, why the lyrics like this? Or why did you pick this genre? Whatever, right? Because the other stuff is just details. And I would like to see, you know, I think we're getting that already, like with that that Chris Deaton, the 1999 track that we just heard, or with the Trong track. It's like, oh, this is cool. This is fresh. It's not like we haven't heard any of these sounds before, or like heard vocal stacks in this way, but clearly your personal influences, you're combining them in a way that's very personal, and it's communicated like you and I like enjoyed them like today. And I'm saying, I think that is where it's like, okay, so you want to learn like the technical stuff, very important for sure. But then also like, what is the inspirational stuff, and how do you combine these things to get your voice, your individual voice across? Because that is what is gonna catch people's attention. Yeah, I think that's where I want it. I want to see more people chase their own, crazy, like wherever that is.
Find your sound, basically, right? Like find your kind of individual.
Find your sound. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I never knew what that meant, but maybe now I do.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it's kind of like that. But speaking of sounds, what are your favorite plugins? What are your top 3 go-tos? And you have to say Serato Sample. No, I'm just kidding.
Love Serato Sample. Use it a lot on my Corazon record. So I'm happy to be like super in the box as an Ableton guy. Like, so I'm not gonna like dodge the question, but I think that the secret there is to like use basic stuff in a more advanced way. By which I mean like combine effects. Let's take Ableton for example. Like, combine a phaser with like a drum bus, like it's super cranked, and like turn that into a group, like a bus group, like or have that as your main group. It's just called pedal. It's like the Ableton whatever, like guitar thing, and I use it like all the time on like anything. I'll use it on just like a top of a bass line. I'll use it for a vocal effect. I'll use it to give some synth, some punch, and then save them, go back to them, combine them. And I think that there's always like a magic bullet, and there's some stuff that is great that I think people talk about a lot. I mean, Soothe is an amazing by Oak Sound. I love Soothe.
Yeah,
that one would be hard to replicate with native plugins. But I think the secret sauce is in like building your own chains of like the things that are available to you, and going like, no one else has this chain. Maybe I use this half the time on all my bass sounds or on different sounds. And people are like, well, what is that? And you're like, oh, it's just like a short reverb combined with like a really quick like slap back delay that is like distorted to hell above 1K, whatever, right? I think playing and experimenting and saving your experiments, almost like a scientist, that's where that secret sauce is.
That's really cool, and I think that also kind of speaks to a more traditional way of producing too. When you think about, how bands would get a producer, like a recording engineer, to produce their record, and they'd have the same sound throughout the whole record. It would be like they'd go and set up the room and then just go, and they'd record different songs with the same sounds, and that would make the record. And I think like you think about some crazy records that are like that, like Amy Winehouse or Khruangbin, for a more kind of current sound. They have obviously, it's the same group, same instruments are playing, but it's what makes it so cohesive too. And that kind of gives you, again, back to your point, finding your sound, right? Like finding kind of like a character that identifies you. That's great.
It could be it could be like your drum bus. It doesn't, you're finding your sound doesn't mean like have to mean these kind of chords or this kind of patch. It can be the way you treat your drums, the way you treat the room or master it, mix it, and all that stuff. And I think that that's something that I learned later on. So when someone will say to me like, "Oh, this record sounds like you," I'll hear it. I'll be like, "Well, I don't think so." First off, sometimes because I'm like, I don't even know what record I'm going to write next. But I think I was like, certain chords. I think I was so focused on like writing types of chord progressions that were maybe jazzy or like more esoteric than the usual for so long that I might have lost sight of like there are other ways to develop your sound.
Yeah, totally. So what's next for Pat? What do you got coming up, man? Do you want to talk about any releases that you've got coming around the corner?
So so right now we're pushing So Fine because that's just been out a week. We're wrapping up some remixes for it. I am finishing up this K-pop record. It's just in like mastering, and finishing up some demos, which I'm really excited about. That I'm going to be hopefully maybe will drop before the end of the year, and will probably make their way into some sets or mixtapes. So if you're in LA, maybe pay close attention because there might be some fun pop-ups or here or in Joshua Tree over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, and then of course the 88 Rising mix, which is coming out on Friday on SiriusXM.
Awesome. So yeah, make sure to follow Patlock. That's if you put that if you're in the Twitch chat, that's !follow. It'll bring up his social media. And if you're not on Twitch, it's Patlock Music on all platforms. So keep locked in there. We have a very interesting quick question from DJ Papalock from the audience. So if you do have more questions, feel free to throw them in here. The question was, if you lock monkeys in a room with the best machines and cigarettes, what masterpiece would they create? Do you care to answer that one, Pat?
And cigarettes. I feel like you would end up. I mean, you would have a pile of something, and like art. It's all about context, because you might not even have. I think you're talking about like auditory like art, but I think what I'm learning is that art is so multidisciplinary that you might have some sort of physical structure that is, could also be construed as art.
I like that. That was beautifully answered, Pat. Such a
Thanks.
challenging question there. Thank you, Papalock. He did say don't ask that question, but I did anyways. So, all right. So, yeah, I think that's about it. But I wanted to thank you very much, Pat, for coming on the show today, and yeah, congrats on the latest release. We're really excited to get out and see you in real life now that those things are starting to become a reality. And,
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you wanted to say before we go?
I mean, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to hang out and kind of go down memory lane a little bit. I mean, keep send your music over. I love hearing new ideas, demos, and check out the Audius grant application. It's just free. If you get chosen, it's like free financial support to help you with your project. I want to push that because I wish there were more avenues of support for artists out there. So put forward your best ideas. You don't have to be a producer. You could be like a label person, or you could be running a music blog. If you have an idea to help grow and support the community in furthering of music, give us a shout. Yeah, if not, hope to see you guys at the shows real soon.
Absolutely awesome. So before we go, we're gonna leave you with the short film that. Oops, sorry, I cut everyone off there. We're gonna leave you with the short film that Pat made for Gone As Yesterday. So yeah, you guys can enjoy that. It's 6 minutes. So stick around, check it out. It's really awesome. That was what you were talking about with your childhood and the 16-bit games and the stories. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's check that out. And everyone have a great day. Thank you again for tuning in with us.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.
See you soon.
I let it lead me. Let my heart be revealed the truth. It don't deceive me. 'Cause it brought me here to you. I'm usually the one making the sound, but I've been too afraid to say it down. I know there's something here I've never found. I can't control it. You gotta know that when I'm with you, I free fall. No lying, I free fall. No hiding, I free fall. No lying, I can't control it. You gotta know that when I'm with you,
This feeling You'll be my salvation. With no hesitation. So baby, take a chance on me. You can come and dance on me. Love is my fixation. Don't you run away. Time that you need. What's your best song? Is it this one? I put it on, flew to see ya. Whenever you're lonely, you don't have to worry. You'll be my salvation. With no hesitation. So baby, take a chance on me. You can come and dance on me. Love is my fixation.